Michigan at Oklahoma. I will be there. Connor Stallions will apparently be there. Oklahoma is a 5.5-point favorite. This game is 7:30 Eastern on ABC. Last week, John Mateer, his first game for Oklahoma, he threw for almost 400 yards. They whipped up Illinois State, an FCS team. However, Oklahoma only averaged 3.2 yards per carry. Michigan played with its food a little bit against New Mexico. New Mexico had a trick play. There was a targeting penalty. One of Michigan's best defenders will miss the first half. David, early thoughts. What are you looking for in this game?
I don't know anything about either of these teams, and that's kind of what I'm curious about. Is we kind of know what we think these teams are, and I think it's pretty simple for me. Is Michigan more balanced? Does Bryce Underwood, a young Bryce Underwood that doesn't have a lot of experience, does he really give them that? You kind of saw some flashes in the New Mexico game, but this is a New Mexico team that you've read about this offseason. They're hitting reset. They've lost kind of everything. Jason X trying out there, but it's hard. I don't really care what you did there. You can see it with Bryce Underwood, but when you're on the road in a tough place where you're going to have a jacked up crowd, can you really give them balance? Because when they got smacked by Texas last year, why did they get smacked, Chris? No balance. It was one dimensional. Texas just crunched down on them, and there was nothing they could do. And eventually, Quinn Ewers hit some balls and popped, and that is what it is. On the other side, the Mateer, Jaden Ott, which kind of some weird Jaden Ott stuff coming out of last week, which that was kind of. There was always some weird stuff going on with him at Cal too, but can they get the job done against a pretty, I'm not going to call Michigan an elite defense yet, but probably a really good defense in a big spot and kind of make last year feel like it's a distant memory? I think those are the two things. Like, this is basically week one for them because we just haven't seen them be tested in any real way. And, I think for me, it just is, does Michigan have balance? And is this kind of weird fantasy team, mishmash for Oklahoma in the offensive backfield, is that going to work?
Yeah, and with Oklahoma offensively, you mentioned the Jaden Ott thing. He played 4 snaps last week. He rushed 1 time for -3 yards, targeted once in the passing game. And Brent Venables, the coach, said that he was banged up in camp. He was also injured a lot last year. He also said he looks to be close to 100%. I will see. Are you just holding him out for precaution, save him for Michigan, or is this something that's going to nag him all season? Because that's a big deal. Ott is
I don't remember them saying anything about this, like coming into the first game of the week, that Ott was like banged up at camp. Did I just miss this?
He apparently, I didn't pay attention because it was an FCS game. He apparently was 3rd string on the depth chart coming in. So we'll see.
There's always some weird stuff going on with Jaden Ott. It's been like a Cal. I feel like every other week it was like, well, this week he's going to run for 170 yards. And then the next week it's like, well, we're not sure what's going on with him, but he got 4 carries for 12 yards. It's like, what?
Yeah. Oklahoma, the offensive line, Michael Fauci, the really good freshman tackle. It looks like he's going to be available and probably start. He wasn't there last week. They really like him. Obviously, as a freshman who might play. I got concerns what happens when you go up against that Michigan defensive line, though. You're not going against high school kids anymore. So that is going to be really interesting. A big part of me thinks this is going to be a close, low-scoring game because I like both of
where
these
I'm leaning.
defenses. Brent Venables is going to have so much in store to mess with a true freshman quarterback who's really in his first game for the first time. And what did we see last week? We saw a new starter in Arch Manning struggle. We saw a freshman starter, CJ Carr, struggle. We saw Julian Sayin struggle. I think Underwood has the talent, and I think he's going to be a really good player, but this is a really tough spot early on. The over-under here is 45.5. Pretty low.
I like the under there, though.
So, all right, let's make a pick. Oklahoma -5.5. I'm going to go Oklahoma wins, Michigan covers.
Okay. I'm going to go Michigan covers. I thought you were going to go Oklahoma covers. I'm going to go Michigan covers. I guess I'll go Michigan outright. I'm not buying the Oklahoma stuff at all. I haven't been in on them at all off season. I just don't see it. I had so many questions about everything else that like adding John Mateer, who again, I'm still not even all in on him. And then the John J. Knott stuff is weird. I have a lot of questions about John Mateer as a passer. Very fun. I don't know that he's a guy that can carry you to 9-10 wins if you need him to. And I think they might need him to. So give me Michigan to cover and win outright in Norman.
One thing, so like this is obviously a non-conference game, but there's a lot. Like I find myself going up to Oklahoma now a lot more than I have in the past. And I think back to I talked to Bob Stoops one time right after Oklahoma announced it was going to the SEC, and he was all in on it because he said they need better home games, and they weren't getting it in the Big 12 because the Texas game is in Dallas every year. And so now you had Alabama there last year. You had Tennessee there last year. Auburn's coming up in a few weeks. Jackson Arnold's return. This is a non-conference.
Good home games.
Like Oklahoma's got a good home schedule now. I've only been up there once for the SMU game a couple years ago. I was going to go to the Alabama, but last second I couldn't. So I'm looking forward to the scene in Norman. Like,
so I covered Oklahoma, so I covered them for a season. And then obviously covering them in the Big 12 for ESPN for lives there quite a bit. Here's the deal with Oklahoma is it's not as bad as like the Texas atmosphere, which is very overrated. Oklahoma has this thing where if it's big games, it's pretty elite there, but they're not very consistent. Like it's not that way every single game. For the big games, they do get up, but for if Texas Tech was coming to town or the non-conference game, it wasn't quite as imposing. The student section wasn't quite as loud, but for this one, it should be pretty amped up. And Norman's cool. I mean, I haven't been to a game there. It's been a little bit, probably 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. It's been a little bit. But it is still an imposing stadium. They've added a bunch there. So it'll be, I think what Michigan's going to find is a pretty elite atmosphere. I think that's going to be good. And then, sort of what North Carolina found out on Monday night, some of that changes depending on how the game plays out. But I do think this will be a close game, a bunch of big plays that are going to decide this thing probably by the defense. And when you have a low scoring game, there's so much tension because, one mistake can really shift the game. And I think that's the kind of game we're going to get. I feel way more confident about the under than I do about Michigan winning, but I'm just not in on the Oklahoma stock situation. So give me the Wolverines.
I don't know what the first half under is, but I'd probably take that too. I think we saw last week first half unders early in the season with new quarterbacks. It's usually a good way to go.